have pretty high expectations of people I work for as well as myself. But I also have fun. And so if you're doing that, I think your work product's better. I think your relationship's better, your team's better. Who wants to go to work every day and hate their job, right? And so that's kind of what I've always carried is if we can have fun and we can collaborate and it takes a village, hopefully you're not the smartest person at the table. I don't ever want to be the smartest person at the table.
It feels good, man. It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I would.
All right, Dusty, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Let's do it.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we sitting down with today?
Well, Kev, good to see you this morning, man. And ladies and gentlemen, we have Dusti Wofford, the global head of digital strategy and technology at CBRE. Dusty, thanks for being a guest on Timeout with Leaders, Season 5 episode. We'll just call it 128 today. How about that? And Dusty, we're going to fire right off. I was laying down about 15 minutes ago thinking of this question. And I wanted to ask you, just to really get to know who Dusti Wofford is would you rather be a professional bull rider or would you rather be a professional NASCAR driver?
Oh, definitely bull rider. It's in, I grew up in, I would say, as a cowgirl, my dad had a ranch in Midland, Texas. I come from a divorced family. And I would spend all my summers in Midland, Texas, riding horses, going to bull riding. So definitely bull riding would be where I would go.
Would you wear a helmet?
100%. I'm a safety bull rider. Safety first. I would like to live to see another day. But yes, bull riding would be the way to go. NASCAR is too unpredictable. You're spinning out of control, hitting walls. I mean, I guess bull riding, you're getting bucked off. But at least I feel a little bit better and more comfortable. So bull riding would be it.
And Dusty, do you know what? Did you know we have like a bunch of like world class like Brazilian bull riders over here? Like that
I did not know that, but it's interesting. We in Argyle, because we're a little bit, I would say, a horse town, right? We know a ton of people that ride horses as well as do kind of the bull riding area. So it does not surprise me, Tyler. We are from, I guess, not to put a name on us, but we are from the cowboy, right?
Yeah, I guess that was the difference. I was a hillbilly up in Arkansas, and I guess Texas isn't even considered Southern. It's considered Texas, It's
considered Texas, and I can tell you, I don't know how much you've traveled, but I still to this day laugh that every time I travel, all I get asked questions about is JR from Dallas, and they all think we're still riding horses to work. So, but I'll take it, right? It's a great imagery.
I gotta ask, what's the best excuse, Dusty, you've ever heard for somebody on your team for not showing up for work?
Oh goodness, that's a good one. I will say I've been really lucky. I've never had a lot of people that just don't show up for work. I mean, you get the normal, I'm sick, but I'd say since Tyler knows this, because I kind of said this yesterday, I think since the pandemic and the whole remote, I definitely have gotten a lot more like excuses that, I don't want to be in the office because I don't want to commute, which I know it sounds silly. Like that's an easy thing to say, you don't want to commute, but and this is going to show my age, but I'm from a generation that you came to work every single day, 8 to 5. If you were late past 8, you better be having a really good excuse. And you were definitely not taking off, or like if your kids are sick, you're trying to struggle and figure out like which partner is going to take it, which parent can help. So, and I actually kind of laugh at that because I'm like, okay, I commute every day an hour and 20 minutes. So like no one can actually give me a good excuse. So, but with that being said, I don't have a great one, but I would say if recently, that's probably our biggest excuse is, I don't want to commute, things like that. So nothing exciting, but I have to say, if anyone listens to this, that's worked for me. I've been really blessed with good employees, good colleagues. So I think that's something I really can't speak a lot on. But
yeah, oh, hey, it all starts with good leadership. What's one of your guilty pleasure songs? Like, what would we catch you to singing into the shower or on your hour and 2-minute drive?
That's a good one too. So I like everything. I like every genre of music, from rap to country to pop, Christian. I do love Unstoppable by Sia. It gets me really revved up. And then a really corny one, and if anybody's ever seen me on speak, is I love the Rocky song. I don't know why. I think it must be my childhood, like seeing him run up the stairs and all.
The Eye of the Tiger, that one?
Yep, the Eye of the Tiger. And so I would say Sia's Unstoppable is one that gets me really energized. I also love to get on my walks and I'll listen to a little bit of Kanye and stuff. So anyways, I like everything. I'm pretty even kill.
Have you seen the A&M when Texas A&M enters their football stadium, that Kanye song that they play?
Yes.
Holy smokes, I get a little excited, and I don't really like the Aggies, to be honest.
Oh, so you can't say that in my presence. So I started off an Aggie. All my friends, my husband are Aggies. I ended up going to UTD. That's a whole different story. But I'm a secret Aggie. Just no one knows it.
So let's get into that real quick, Dusty. I got to ask you. So the gold ring cracks me up, right?
Yeah.
Like, Kevin, do you know about this?
Nope.
Perfect, Kevin. Yeah. So, dude, Kevin, I'm not making this up, Kev. And Kev's up in Rochester, New York, Dusty. Aggies, when they graduate, no matter how old you are, they wear this gold ring on their finger.
Wow.
It's because if you look at the Aggie traditions and network, there's nothing like it. And I think part of it is a little bit of networking, because if you see someone with an Aggie ring and you're an Aggie, you're instantly friends, and you instantly potentially could get some opportunities, right? So I look at it that way, but I also just from a traditions, it's a proud school. Like, you are proud to be an Aggie. You're proud to do all those crazy traditions. You're proud to do the yells and the chants. And so if you ever go, you have to go to the school to appreciate it. Probably everybody looking in thinks like they're just a bunch of weirdos, but it's actually the best college football experience you'll ever I have it. My daughter was looking at Ole Miss, and so we were, that's any SEC school has some amazing football experience and tradition. So, but so is it an entry? And then it's a big deal when you graduate. You take that ring and you dunk it in beer and you chug that beer. Like, it is a thing.
I've heard about some of those rugby traditions too. Something with a boot. They all pour it into a boot. And Tyler, we have Bonaventure up here. That's another proud school. And the only way I always say is they'll be the first to tell you where they went to school.
Yeah, man.
I wish some days, and I'm very proud of my journey in college career. It took me forever, but some days I'm like, why didn't I just stay at A&M and finish so I could have that gold ring too, Tyler?
And Kev, I've never seen networking done like this. I saw two people like meet each other with the gold ring, and it was like hugs. I was like, oh my gosh, I am missing out on something. I'm behind the 8 ball, guys.
Like no other.
Yeah, and Dusty, before we get into kind of your journey, I got to ask you one more question here. If me, you, and Kev were in a rocket ship headed to Mars right now, what other 2 people are on that ship with us? And we can't have family on there. Who are we bringing for entertainment, pretty much? Because we already have the guide, all that stuff, all the technology's built for us. Who's in the rocket ship with us?
Okay, so definitely, I'm trying to think. Do we have food?
Yeah, we got food.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about bringing a chef to actually pick for it. Because I was going to pick that. I think I would pick, if I wanted someone that I really am interested in and that could entertain us, I love Mel Robbins. I don't know if you know her, but Mel Robbins, do y'all know who Mel Robbins is? Okay. Yeah. Mel Robbins, I think she's hilarious. I think she's raw, and she's also insightful, and I would say she's dug into so much stuff that she probably could help us too, right? Like once we land on Mars. I think the other, this is so good, that I really think would be a good one would be maybe, Richard Branson. I also think he would be fun. So those are two people I admire from afar. I know they're random, but he would be fun. He's a fun guy, I believe. And so I want to bring people that are fun. And if you're going to be in Mars and be away, that you're going to be entertained. So those are my two choices.
Right on. Well, hey,
now we may not eat and we may not survive because we've brought no one who could probably help us in that area. But
well, cool. Let's go back before UTD and before A&M, Dusti. Like, can you kind of describe to me and Kevin, our audience, who Dusti Wofford was, but before college? What were you like in 10th through 12th grade?
I would say I always tell, it's interesting. I tell my kids this all the time. I don't want to say I was boring because, but I had very strict parents.
Okay.
And so, you were home on Saturday. If you spend the night on Friday night, you were home on Saturday night and you were cleaning the house and you were mowing the lawn. So I came from a very, very strict background. Lots of expectations. I worked. My parents made a very nice living, but we paid for our clothes, our shampoo, our conditioner. Totally different than how I've raised my kids. I've gone the other pendulum, and I'm the human ATM. But yeah. So but I will tell you, interestingly enough, I had a high school. My husband was my high school sweetheart, so we were together once as 15. So we were kind of learning and growing together, but I didn't really know what I wanted. Looking back, all my friends knew exactly where they wanted to go to school. I had no idea. My parents, I was a first generation college, even though my dad did very well. He's very entrepreneur, never went to school. My mom didn't go to school. She helped my dad with his businesses. And so they did not push me to go to school. Mm-hmm. They pushed me to learn how to be independent and provide for myself. And so that's where, which in hindsight, I hated it at that time because I thought they were mean. But in hindsight, they build a sense of, I would say, purpose, or I don't give up. Like, that's one of the things I always tell my kids. Life is going to get hard, but we don't stop. Us Woffords, we keep going. We keep, beating our head up against the wall. It will eventually stick. And so with that being said, all my friends took off for school, and I did not had applied anywhere, and I was left like, what am I going to do? I love learning, but I don't love school. And I just never have. And I didn't appreciate it like I should have. And so I went to Collin County, and then I looked around and was like, okay, this is boring. I can't do this. And that's when I applied for A&M and got in. And that's kind of the journey on to school. So I would say for me, I was persistent. I was a hard worker, a good kid. I mean, I did things, but, I was a good kid. And I think I told you before, I came from a blended family that also kind of helped, I had stepsisters, there were, there's challenges with blended families sometimes that teach you things and how to probably be a little bit more of a survivalist. But anyway, so I would say, if I had to say that was kind of me as my younger years. Okay. I was talkative. I did always get in trouble for talking too much in school. That's what my mom would say, that I was constantly getting in trouble because I talked too much.
Right. And do you think, growing up, being taught that, let me start with this. Let's start with college real quick. Do you think what are we, like 17 or 18 when we go to college? Is that right? I
was freshly 18,
You're
July birthday.
Do you think that's a little young, like looking back? Well,
okay, I say this. What generation? I hate to say that, but generationally, like, my parents raised me to be independent, and I think it's young emotionally, but it depends on how you were raised. Now my kids, yes, it's young. So and like I said, I think it's because we've raised every generation has raised their kids a little bit different, and you think about my mom's generation, they were having babies at 18. Let's be honest, right? That was kind of the natural cultural thing. So I think, Tyler, it's definitely generational in culture. So I won't say I was too young, but did I know what I wanted to be? Or I think that's where the pressure comes. Like, what do you want to be? What are you going to do? Who knows, like, what you're going to be, right? And so I think it depends on the person. It depends on the culture and the genre, I would say.
I caught that too. I had no clue. I was like, I want to be in marketing, guys. I am like a walking marketing billboard in a human flesh is what I'm just natural at. And they were like, marketing, there's too many people in marketing. And they're like, you should go to transportation and logistics. I could not care less about how freight gets from A to B, guys. I would just be sitting in there and I'm like, do these people want me to work at JB Hunt or Walmart for the rest of my life, just shipping baby wipes from China to Bentonville, Arkansas, or wherever? But yeah, I always think of that. And some people, it makes sense that I've asked that question, like the engineers, for instance.
Yeah, I think it depends on your, yes, 100% engineers or people that are of a certain mindset, know exactly what they want. I was always more of
accountants and CPAs in there too. Those are very
agreed. And that's what we can get into that more. But if I look back, I was always more of a creative type. It makes sense that I'm in real estate because I love architecture and interior design, but I really wanted to be an interior decorator. But everybody's like, there's no money in it. So then that's how my career started. I actually picked a career that I probably was like, at school, I hated it. Don't know why I got a degree in it. And I thought it was going to be horrible, but I was actually good in it in real life. And it also was a good platform for my journey. So I tell people all the time too, Tyler, it doesn't matter what you do for your career. It's try to pick something and learn from it and have transferable skills, right? That's the important thing. Everything you do, it doesn't matter if I worked at Tom Thumb my whole high school career. And I tell everybody it was the best experience ever because it was customer service. And it taught me that I had to have a level, you deal with, I was in like the office cashier. Everybody came and complained to me. And so you have to learn to deal with difficult people and really they just have a certain situation going on. They're frustrated. It's not really you. And so you have to kind of step back. So best experience ever. If I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be the type of person I am today. So I just tell everybody, go do something, make a decision, go do it. And then you can always recreate your career at any age. You can.
Right.
I love that.
You got some experiences to talk about too, and when you haven't done anything, it's kind of hard to tell people you don't like stuff.
Yeah. I think, you mentioned a couple big things, and I guess I want to dive a little bit deeper. You talked about that pendulum swing, right? And each generation tries to raise their children differently, or at least a little bit better than what they had experienced. What are in parenting, that word that you used is expectations. We have expectations as a parent based off of society, right? Or these blueprints that we saw from others. But what are some of the lessons that made you that survivalist that you take with you every single day, Dusti, from your leadership position, your role as a mom? What are some of the ways that helped you to evolve?
I would say what's been really important is I've made lots of mistakes. I have. I'll give you a story about A&M. I worked really hard to get into A&M. My first semester, I made a 0.8. You know why I made a 0.8? Because I had a little too much fun. And my girlfriends, who I'm still very close to, I got into a sorority. That probably didn't help. And had too much fun. And every time we went to study at the library, I sat there and said, okay, if I can make an A on the exam, I'll pass. But I never really focused on studying. Like the whole time, it's a running joke that Dusti, all that she did was did the math, right? And maybe that's why I was an accountant for a while. But what it taught me, all these little nuggets of failures, and that was a really rough one. I sat in the counselor's office. I remember crying that, I made a 0.8, which meant that I had to go to Blinn. I worked so hard to go into A&M and I had to go to junior college because I had to get my grades up. And she looked at me and said, Dusti, I feel you, but if you would have passed running class, so I had running at noon in College Station. If you know College Station, it's like it's pure humidity, running up stands, and I like to run, but not that much. And I never showed up. And so she didn't care. My tears didn't help, my pleas. And from that moment and just all these nuggets of failure, it's taught me one thing is we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. but you can't give up, right? Because if you give up or give into that emotion or that you can live in it for a day, mull over it, whatever you need to do. But the next day you need to wake up and, pull yourself together and figure out how you're going to tackle it. And that's how I've lived my life in my personal. It's how I raised my kids. Professional, it served me well because, you both know this. In the professional world, there's things that don't go your way all the time. Mm-hmm. And you can succumb to it or you can rise to the challenge and figure out how are you going to course correct or do something different. So I would say when you talk about survivalists, I think it's so important that, and I think in this generation, and I speak for my kids, their expectations are high that things are going to always go their way. And that's not a reality, right? And so I've really tried to work really hard to say, it's okay to fail. It's okay if it doesn't go your way. What's not okay is for you to let it defeat you and you give into it. So I think that's really what's kind of driven me and really helped me in my life.
Hence your appreciation for Eye of the Tiger and Rocky. That guy took an absolute beating over 15 rounds, but somehow he ended up as the champion. But and it seems like, right, just hearing you talk, and it's very similar in the journey that I'm experiencing as well, is limiting expectations but still having a goal. And right, you expect something to go perfectly. That's usually where it leads to disappointment, resentment, anger, fear. And I love how you said it. It's no day is going to go perfectly, but are you looking for the challenge as an opportunity, or are you looking as a challenge as an obstacle that you can't overcome? And we heard some great advice over the show over the years too. And one of my favorite quotes that has always stuck with me is failure is not final. And right, the belief that you can learn from failure. And just like you've reflected, Dusty, I think on your career, there's these pivotal moments where going through that experience at the time sucked. But then you can look back and it's like, I had to go through that experience in order to gain that wisdom and that knowledge. And I think the expectation side, call it social media, call it whatever it is, but I too see that this expectation is high, but because I think we live in a society where we're not really celebrating failure and talking about failure before success is not traditional.
Yeah.
I can really appreciate what you shared.
Yeah. And I think it's a little instant gratification. Think about it. I very rarely go to the grocery store anymore because I either pick up my phone and I can get it here within 2 hours, or I can get, anything on Amazon. Right. And especially my youngest has grown up in that era where she doesn't have to really, everything's like this, right? And I think it's great. Like we all enjoy that, but it also hinders us that, I think that's where that expectation comes in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about y'all and what you do kind of with your colleagues, but I'm in technology, right? So, and forget even technology. When I was in finance and accounting, it was the same. There is no day, like you said, Kevin, that is the same. And I can tell you right now that, especially with how fast moving tech is, if you're not taking risks and failing, you're not learning and growing. And that's in business, that's in everything. And it's how you react to that. That I think is so important is, you need to be failing to learn, but fail the right way and pivot quickly. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's something I talk quite heavily with my product teams, and, don't let it get you down, because you're going to have lots of this. Or you're not doing anything. You're not stretching yourself. You're not growing.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said about instant gratification, because I think we live in an immediacy economy, right? I can hit this button and 2 hours later I have that item, or I at least know that item's on its way. I can track it down to the state of where it's passed through last. Now Amazon will tell you how many stops away that the truck is. And I think we've lost some of the in-between, right? Yeah. And we want to jump to the result. And that's where I think change management is a real challenge in businesses, because you have these meetings, right? And it sounds like, Dusty, your approach is very similar. You involve everybody, right? You gain the full perspective, get their input to help you strategize as to what product makes the most sense or what iteration of the process makes the most sense. But I think that instant gratification where you sell them on the vision, that they immediately want the vision without doing any of those changes.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If it was only that easy, Kevin, and that's where that's the people part, right? Where it's a great thing that we're all unique in our own people, but it's also some of our hardest challenges, right? Because we are unique and we're not the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I think, being able to get groceries and life, when it gets too easy, at least for me, at nighttime, I don't feel that good if I didn't exhaust myself in some sort of way. Like if I don't go play basketball or do a few activities or sweat. I always tell Kev, I'm figuring out a way to sweat today is my only goal. Everything else will fall into play. And I noticed that when it's so easy and when things are just handed over to you, I don't know. My soul's not real filled. I don't feel like. I feel like I'm going to bed a little empty, but with a lot more energy I could have exhausted. I don't think the kids get that. The process. Like me and Kev talk all the time. Like sometimes Kev and I will do some pretty fun stuff in business, and when we get to the pinnacle, it's like, whoop-de-doo, and I think the laughs are in the process too. And the real laughs in my experience are in the failures. Yeah. It's like I belly laugh sometimes at the stuff I've screwed up. I don't really laugh at the things I just kind of did okay or right. And I always try to express to the kids, I deal with hiring managers a lot. That's who my client is. And I try to prep the younger generation on expressing experiences with failure. And they don't get it. They're like, but I've never failed like that. And I'm like, well, they want to know that you failed because if you fail, that means you have experience.
Yes, it does. And I think you said something really important, Tyler. And I don't know if this is where you were going, but I think we forget to have fun, right? Don't take life so serious. Unless maybe you're like a brain surgeon or someone,
Gotta be serious.
That yes, but I guarantee 85 to 90% of us are not doing anything that's going to hurt lives or things. And so I tell people, you got to remember to have fun. I don't care what you're doing. Have fun. We live this life. It's not, for some of us it's longer, for some of us it's not. But if you're not having fun, then don't do it. Go do something else.
That's how I was raised, kind of indirectly by my dad's players. Like my dad coached high school football in Texas and in Arkansas, and all the players said he kept it fun. We really didn't see that at home. My mom's nickname for him was Mr. Fun because he wasn't very fun at home. But I would always ask him, I'm like, hey Dad, how are y'all winning by 40 and 60 points all the time? And he would always go, I make it fun, man. I'm like,
it's true.
You make stuff fun, dude.
It's true. If you can have if you think about the workforce, I believe I have pretty high expectations of people I work for as well as myself, but I also have fun. And so if you're doing that, I think your work product's better. I think your relationships better, your team's better. Who wants to go to work every day and hate their job, right? And so that's kind of what I've always carried is if we can have fun and we can collaborate and it takes a village, hopefully you're not the smartest person at the table. I don't ever want to be the smartest person at the table. That also keeps it fun, right? Because we're challenging and stuff. So I think, Tyler, you hit on something really important on that is, we lose sight of that sometimes and we should not.
Oh, and it's amazing when you just pull the trigger and you do some outlandish stuff to have some fun, and I did it yesterday, Dusty. I'll share this with you real quick. I told Kevin, did I tell you this, Dusty? I have a 5:30 workout group in my neighborhood over here in Lantana, and it's like 40 to 60-year-old dudes. One of them's the CISO for Chuck E. Cheese, another's like a CIO for Denton County, just some professionals over here. So we get to the awning is where we in the middle of our neighborhood to work out every other morning. And I was the leader of the pack yesterday morning. So I got there at 4:40 a.m., Dusty. And I hid behind the pavilion, like right beside where we all work out. I'm there at 4:40. I'm dressed in all black so I don't get the cops called on me. Some jogger sees a 6'2", 240-pound man dressed, like laying down in the field. But anyways, the group got there. yesterday, and my nickname is Piglet because I'm an Arkansas Razorback. So they were like, I remember it was Purple Rain, Radar, and Netflix. They were like, where the heck is Piglet? So they were all discussing on who's going to lead the group. They were like, man, I bet Piglet's sleeping in. I heard so much trash talked about me. And I'm just sitting there like, no one knows. I waited till 5:29 and 57 seconds, and we have these like cinder blocks. So I remember I put on a Chris Stapleton song. I cranked it from my phone and I scared the shit out of everybody. And it was game on. But you know what that did?
Did you get a video of it?
I thought about being the creepy guy, like videoing myself the whole time, but I did not videotape it. But people asked me where I got that from, and I was like, believe it or not, I got that from my dad. He would do crazy crap like that. Like I remember one time down in South Texas, he had his football team warm up in a parking lot next to the football field. So the other team was like mentally thinking they weren't going to show up. And they were all decked out, pads, helmet on and everything, and walked on the field like 6 minutes before the game. And I was like, I'm turning into my dad, like as we freaking speak. As I'm hiding out at 4:40 a.m. in a neighborhood.
Well, it's a good character trait for you. So I think that's funny.
Oh, I get it. Dusty, I was going to ask you, how do you inspire your team and keep it going? Because we hear all these leaders talk all the time, Dusty. Like I said, this is like episode 128 or something like that. Like, what are some nuggets, some things that you hone in on to keep it spicy over there and fun when it's day in, day out, year in, year out? How does Dusti Wofford keep her team, fueling the fire?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think So I talk about the pandemic a lot because our world really has changed overnight over the last 3 years, and how I inspired them before is really different probably. But I think, we're in real estate, let's be honest, and their market has not been great in real estate the last couple of years. So I'm very used to it. I've spent my entire career in real estate. I was part of the 2008 crash. So I've seen the peaks and valleys, and that's real estate, right? And so I have to kind of remember sometimes, especially with the younger generations, that they've never been through some of the life experiences. So I really do try as best as possible, I'm probably not perfect, of putting myself in their shoes and thinking about their fears or their challenges. And so I'm a pretty open book person. Most people, if you ever talk to someone and they say, what is Dusty? I don't really hide anything. My husband hates it. Everybody knows everything about me. I just don't filter anything. I just tell, I'm just an open book. And so I do the same thing with them. I try to bring a rapport and a little bit of emotional intelligence to my job, because I think you got to have some empathy, right? And put yourself in their shoes. But I think I mentioned this before, I have a lot of high expectations. So I'm very much of like, how can we think different? What can we do different? That's kind of I try to bring the energy of like, we're not robots. For example, I don't know if y'all have ever read the book, what is it? Just Why? I have it right here. Start with Why. With Simon Sinek. I love him because it's such a the book is not like earth shattering, but that question is we don't ask enough why in everything we do. And we're not robots, right? So Tyler, I could go on and on about this of how I engage my teams, but I'm very passionate about building teams. I think that's one of the areas I think I do a really good job. But I think you have to have emotional kind of empathy. You have to be a little humble. You have to humble yourself, because you also have to when you're building a team and you're trying to keep the dynamic of that team and moving hard, complex things. You also have to, I try to be an A player. Well, if I'm an A player, I want to hire A players, which means that you have to, if you have all A players, you can imagine, right? So they're all trying to be, they're competitive, maybe they're entrepreneurial, maybe they're ambitious. So it's really just saying, here's our expectation. Here's what's going on today. Here's what we can do. And the other thing, this is probably digressing a little, but I think we don't listen enough to sometimes people. And when I say listen, sometimes, this is something, a lesson learned for me. I used to come to the table and I would always say, we're going to do this, right? And then, oh, what's your feedback? And I wouldn't get any feedback. Everybody's quiet, right? And I realized the problem is I needed to take myself out of the equation and say, okay, we have this problem statement. What are we going to do? And be quiet and not say another word. Because most people, especially culturally, depending on where they are, they're not going to speak after you speak, right? They're not going to go against what maybe you said, or maybe they're not thinking because you're not engaging that part of the brain to say, hey, I want to hear your feedback. So I try, that's really how I kind of live I would say, life, and engaging my team, engaging with clients, is I kind of do a combination of that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always joke with Tyler. I thought Start With Why was a good book. There was one paragraph that I think if you just cut it out, that book could be like 110
he's repetitive.
pages.
I know. Yeah. I actually made is a strong word, but kind of. I made my team read that, and then we would meet. We would meet on it but I think everybody should read it, just because if we asked why, Maury, if you read it, you would get that I mean, goodness gracious, if we don't know how the sausage is made, then how do we actually know we're going in the right direction? And I think so many times we're just order takers and we're just checking the box. Yeah. And then we end up somewhere and we're like, why did we end up somewhere? We don't even know why. And so I just think it's really, I think it's a good book. But yes, a little bit of
somewhat repetitive in some of those areas.
But that's why you should do the Audible. So I would just put Audible on while I'm walking, and I'm like, okay, if he says the same thing over and over, okay, great. But,
One of the things, because I want to go back to, because I think this is all kind of interrelated, Tyler, like you said, when life gets easy, and I think that's like human nature, right? Some people call it your comfort zone. Other people in science call it homeostasis, right? But I think that's the area where we immediately go into that autopilot mode. And Dusty, then you kind of touched on it a little bit. Are we really listening, or are we going in with our ideas and kind of going in with the same approach each and every time? And I think that's what people are starting to become aware of, is self-awareness. And I think that's really the pandemic was like, man, I tried for so long to be two different people, both at home and at work, but is that really who I am, or who am I ultimately? Yeah. And I think, like you said, that part of it, spontaneity suffers, right? Having fun suffers. And sometimes you start to get so close to what you do that you identify with it, which then the fear, right? You stop listening, you don't take feedback. And I think that's some of the things that you guys have both been discussing as to, well, what is that magic sauce, and how do you get back to having fun?
Yeah. And it's the main connection, right?
Absolutely. And I think that we don't have enough of that, right? When you say empathy, what is empathy? It's compassion in action, right? It's actually acting on the compassion that, I feel so bad for this individual. But I loved what you said about the problem statement, and going way back when you said, hey, I got this degree, but it served me. That's really where biology really served me too. I don't use biology, but starting with a problem statement, can you kind of go through that? Because I think challenges, right? You can either focus on the challenge, or you can look at it as an opportunity for improvement. How do you and your team come up with what the problem is, right? To then identify kind of that shared responsibility in solving it? Yeah.
It's a great question. So one of the things, and this has been my entire career, this is probably a pros and a cons. I love challenges. The harder, the better. I think it's a little bit of a competitive nature that, hey, give me the hardest. I'm gonna solve it. And sometimes you kick yourself because you're like, why did I ask for this, right? But I feel like the best way to understand in any kind of I don't care what you're in. I don't care if you're the accounts payable clerk or the operations, manager, you sit at the front desk. We all have challenges, right? And part of that, and what my team does, and I think what's really helped us, is you have to understand your space, whatever that space is. So I'll give you an example. our business is very complex, and there's really we have different clients, customers, internal, external. So if you think about like a process flow, if you had a perfect little user journey or a process flow, everybody's touching each other. So that's one thing. This is going to get really technical, but one thing I think is very powerful, and I tell people, you've got to understand your business. And what that means is not that, I'm a broker and I go do deals. It's you have to get to that detailed level of that user journey, who all you touch, and that's who are all the people, right, that are partnered on that journey with you. What are all the dimensions of that? And I think it's pretty eye-opening, Kevin, when you do that. And when I say you're doing that with whoever your stakeholders are. And that's that could be the business, that could be your client. I don't care who it is, but you have to listen. You have to actively listen. Don't say anything, right? Don't pretend you know it, which is really hard, especially for me. Because I've been with this company so long. This is probably my a flaw. I like to, sometimes I'll jump to conclusions because I'm like, oh, I know, right? Quit assuming. You know what that means is assume. I'm not going to say it on the live broadcast, but it's true. And so that's something my team, I take very seriously. It's something that guides our strategy. And we also, since I'm technology and I'm strategy, I'm very partnered with my business on that. So if you think about it from a company, you need to know your company strategy or your own, whatever. You can use this dichotomy for anything. But so that's our first and foremost, Kevin. And usually when we do that, we know the challenges at a high level, but we don't know always how the why, right? The why. And so that gets us our why. And once we have that, that's where the magic happens, because we can really truly then figure out, okay, if it's a business case formally that we're putting together to solve a problem, if it's whatever we need to do to solve that problem, that's where my team usually, and we're working very close together. So the team's working close together with the partners. We're bringing, that's another thing I didn't say. I think it's very important. I don't care what company or what you do. You need to bring everyone to the table. Even if you think they don't belong at the table, they probably impact that process and you just don't know it. So that's another key thing. But I would think if you start there and you bring the right people to the table, you're really digging deep and leaning in and asking why, then I think it's naturally, you know what to do. You really do. It's amazing if people just spend the time up front I think sometimes we spend less time at understanding the problem and more time just jumping and thinking we know how to solve it. And then we end up and we're like, oh, we didn't solve it. And we're wondering why we're where we are a year later and we've spent all this money. So I think it's really important if you spend the time up front, it'll be pretty simple and easy for you to go implement whatever you're trying to do on the problem. If that helps and answers your question.
No, definitely. And I want to go back to what you said, that quit assuming. I literally had a meeting today, and I think all employees because I used to consult in businesses, and they all say, oh, communication's poor. And I think it's this high stress, low energy environments that most businesses have unconsciously created, where we assume so much and we communicate so little. And I think it's a byproduct of that high stress, low energy. And again, I wanted to go back to, because I think the hard part for people to bring up challenges, right, is that guilt, right, or that potential shame or rejection, maybe some of their personal insecurities comes in, because what's a complaint and what's a challenge, right? Being able to decipher as to, is this just a complaint? Because and again, some people are better than others, obviously, but sometimes the complaints are unsolvable because it's something they're unwilling to do themselves.
Yeah. But I think, Kevin, if that's where we need to provide our people with a safe space to be honest, right?
Yeah.
And I think culturally, that'll change, right? Because if you drive a culture of, I really want to know because I want to help you. Now, it doesn't mean that we may be able to help you. It may not be our priority this year, but we're listening and hearing you, and we want you to have a seat at the table. It's amazing. It's magical. And I honestly am surprised a lot of times because this happens a lot at a lot of companies. It does. Even in big companies, small companies, like your communication things, we hear that all the time. But if you give the people the free space, they also are going to partner with you and they're not going to be noisy. So like, let's say you do something and you fail, they're going to be your best cheerleader and say, okay, we learned from that. How are we going to do it better? So I think it's just so important that to give people the ability to be freely speaking but also come with solutions. Like, I'm not saying let's have a bunch of people complain and not be a part of it. Cause I tell people all the time, don't come complaining, complaining and with a solution or how are we going to make it better? And it's so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that makes change easier, right? If somebody feels like they were listened to and their feedback was valued and they were heard, to factor into whatever changes determined thereafter.
Yeah.
I think we're all in the same world, guys. I had the same exact thing. I always...
It's life, Tyler. It is. I think we all experience it.
Oh yeah, and what I've learned just over the past year or two is the complain thing. Is I value someone's complaint if they actually tried it. I've seen so many people come to me like complaining, and I'll say, well, did you do A, B, or C? And they're like, absolutely not. And you're like, okay, so we're just sitting here like just complaining. I don't know. I found a trend in that. Is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, next time they do that, Tyler, sit back and say, okay, so how would you solve it? And put it back on them and be quiet. Don't say anything. And it's pretty powerful when you do that because it opens them in, right? And to be invited to help you.
Okay, Dusty. And Dusty, I wanted to ask you, who's inspired you over your career? Like who did you have, whether if it was a coach or a manager, a director that you really took some notes on?
So I think I said this before. I've been really lucky. I've been with this company a long time. I've had a number of different roles. I've had a ton of mentors and advocates. So I wouldn't say I could always point to just one. There's a handful, but I would say I had she's not with the company anymore, but early in my days, I had a director who was very instrumental and very much, I was probably too hard on myself. My job was my identity in my early years. And she was very good about that. Don't take yourself so serious, but also giving me advice on, how I could do things differently. It really opened my eyes to like being more open. So I'd say early days, she was very instrumental. Later days, I have one of our global CFOs, very, very close to. I go to him a lot. Even my CEO currently, I go to him. So I'm just really blessed that I would say I have a tribe. There's not one person. I think I've told you this, Tyler, I'm really passionate about women and supporting women in real estate. I think everybody knows this. There's less women in real estate. There's even less women in tech, which I didn't think could be possible. And so I very much now want to pay it back, right? Because I've been so blessed. And most of my mentors have been men, surprisingly, and my advocates. And they have been in different walks of my life. But and I actually probably failed to mention someone. There's someone in Europe. I used to travel quite heavily. And if you ever get a chance to travel, especially if you're young, do it. It's amazing for you personally, but culturally from a business, it opens your eyes. And I think you're very well-rounded when you go because you'll see the challenges of just like France is a good example, right? France culturally, it's just different. They have labor, the labor unions different. And it really does, I would say, tie our hands as corporations sometimes. And there's all these rules. And if you don't understand them, know them, or if you go to Italy, for example, you don't dare go into a meeting. You go first on the terrace and you have I have my latte. They're having their espresso, but you have your drink and you don't talk shop. Like they're very much about like segregation as much as possible. And you go to Japan and there's a totally different, you got to understand their hierarchy and things. it really helps you on a whole nother level. So I won't say those were all mentors, but I had these leaders over in Europe and Asia that also guided me because I was in unknown territory. I was the corporate America, typical corporate American coming into their country like a bulldozer. And I really had to learn, and it taught me a lot. So I don't have one person, Tyler, but I think it's really important, especially as we all age and get more mature, I would say, that we also give back. And so that's why I was saying I'm a passion for giving back to women. It's top of mind. It's really something that I want to do, but it's not just women. It's just in general, our youth, right? And helping them navigate their careers, navigate their balance. And there is no balance between work and family. I actually hate it when people say that because it's not true. It's you go to work one day and you spend 18 hours, and the next day you do 12 hours at home or something, But that's what I think is really important when we think about these advocates. So,
and Dusty, you said something awesome. And I know Kevin and I always talk about. You said you used to identify yourself with your job.
Oh,
how did you break away from that mentality?
I'm not saying I'm totally broken away from it or saved on that, but I think it's as you get a little bit older, you realize that the work is going to be there tomorrow. You also realize, I go back to that we're not solving cancer here, right? And I've just relied on my team more. I didn't probably do as good a job when I was younger of really building. So I've always been good at building a team, but I've always protected my team a little in a bad way where I didn't want to expose them to something really negative. I would just do it myself, or I didn't want to ask them to work the weekend because, they might, I would just do it myself, which actually is a bad thing, right? You got to be able to trust. It's a good and bad thing, right? You want to build a team that, you're supporting, but you also are not letting them grow. And so now I'm much better at that, where I'm okay if my team's working the weekend and I'm not, because I've been there, done that. And so if they need me, they'll call me. Right. And so that has helped me step away a little bit. I still have it, right? I still have days where, something happens and I come home and it's run my day and it's all I talk about at night. My husband, is ready to kick me out the door. But I just think you have to step away, right? And you have to really work. It's a constant. The other thing is, you talked about working out. I think it's really important you take care of yourself and find I don't know if it's working out, going to play pickleball, whatever you do, you have to have hobbies. Don't lose yourself. And because it's also a mental thing, right? And it helps you mentally decompress. You're stronger if you do this. And so that's something also I've been focusing, because I didn't focus on it when I was traveling all the time. I was just working and going and working and going in airports. And I really, my mental really hindered from it. Yeah, maybe certain things got stronger, but mentally I needed to decompress. And so that's the other thing is, I think hopefully y'all both have it, but hobbies are really important.
Oh, I got some hobbies. Yes. And I couldn't agree more.
I think I don't want to talk about a guy-woman thing, but I always think guys are better than women at this. My husband loves to play golf. He makes it important to play golf. I think where I love to work out. It's just one of those things. But I find I'll let certain things slide. And so I work, a lot of the men I work with, I talk to them. I'm like, how do you decompress? What I was telling you, one of our CFOs, and he's very, very good. He has a schedule of I do this in the morning. I go to my trainer this day and I do this. And I'm like, how do you find the time? But then I'm like, we all have the time. It's how important it is for you. Right. And so.
Yeah, Kevin,
what you prioritize.
Yeah,
Kevin, you said something awesome 3 months ago in one of your text messages to me, man. You said, do you remember what it was? It was a list of stuff. and it said something like, "You're not too busy, you're just not organized." Was that something like? Is that? Do you remember that? Remember that?
Something like that. Yeah, but I which I love, and I think Dusty, my hardest part was what I was identifying with my career so much was that was where I was getting that internal validation that I needed so bad, right? To know what I was good at, and that's where work was always, that was the priority, So all these other things fell down the honey-do list, right? That was less of a priority for me. But over time, you start to realize, I guess, how empty you are, how lost you get very quickly, especially when, like you said, the ebbs and flows of real estate. I would say those ebbs and flows of people telling you good job or thank you or congratulations or you're so great. Those also are rising and low tides, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think when you said it, you touched on it earlier, from your parents, right? High expectations from them, kind of carry it over to us. And now it's like, how do I outperform and outachieve, and how do I acquire? And then still not really speaking to your soul. That's really where I found my mind is really taking control, and that's where the ego really starts. And ego shows its head in different ways. And I think the definition that I had, frankly, was just something that I never met, not realizing my ego was fed in totally different ways.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. And you said this, feed the soul. I think that's so important. We all have to, we all have to have a job, and we all have ambitions. And I always say I'm the lucky one. I love my job. I love every day I go to work. I don't just say that. I'm not just saying that. I really do. I mean, there's days where I'm sure I'm like, oh, it's been a day. But for the majority, I love my job. But I also know that it's really it's amazing when you give back. When you give back and you mentor a young person, or you go volunteer for the needy. And that's something as well that, as part of our women's network, we've gotten really engaged with Girls Inc. I don't know if y'all heard of them, but Girls Inc. it's a great organization. And I can't tell you, to go spend 3 or 4 hours in helping these children, these high school girls or these young elementary who don't have what my kids have or what I've had, it gives far more powerful of giving your soul what you need. And I think if we thought about that a little bit more, giving back to our communities and giving back to people, it would break the cycle too, that our whole identity is wrapped into our jobs. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because we all have to have jobs and we spend so much time at our job. Of course that's natural, but I also think we don't spend enough time on the important things. And I don't want to end this on a weird note, but this comment, but my dad, when he passed away about 8 years ago, and one of the things he said stuck with me. He was a workaholic, entrepreneurial, did very well. He was always like this, a true typical entrepreneur. We were either feast or famine, right? That's how I grew up. And so he was on his literally deathbed, and he said, I should have spent more time with y'all. And that also stuck with me, that there is going to be a day I need to look back on my life, right? And I hope that I've done it the right way, and I've built the memories I want to build and spent time with relationships or whatever you enjoy doing, right? And it's not just one thing, because then you're not, so that's what kind of also stuck with me 8 years ago, that, how you don't want to be saying that on your deathbed, right? I
love looking at the end, because that's some of the stuff you can read is what are people's last quotes, and obviously it's fame. No one said, I wish I worked more,
No.
But sometimes having that end in mind is not, and working backwards to say, is that where I want to finish? And I think to your earlier point, that's really what the pandemic did. It was like that hard reset of goals and expectations, because that's when I would say my physical mind took over with the 5 senses versus your soul, which is kind of always there, but you're not really calling it forward, or you're not listening to it, that intuition.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, oh, that's a crazy thought, but here's other crazy thoughts. And to your point, Dusty, the expectations that I put on myself were so much grander than anybody else, just so I could use that as motivation to continue to improve, but also tell me that old story that I wasn't good enough or I wasn't worthy for certain opportunities. So thank God for people that you mentioned earlier. I love that you used a different word. I think I've heard sponsor, but the word advocate is really a perfect word, because sometimes when you are low, you're depressed or you're anxious, sometimes it takes that other perspective, sometimes to say, hey, I believe in you, or you can do this. And
this is a whole nother podcast, Kevin and Tyler. We could spend an hour on that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think if you think of the new generation, they're going to make us think this way, right? They are much more like this. They're much more well-rounded. Their life isn't just surrounding work. But I think it also, if you think about this, when you step away, at least I'm always refreshed and I'm better at work, right? So I tell my employees and my colleagues all the time, like, don't wear a badge because you never go on vacation, right? That's not a badge. Like, first of all, that means we don't trust our people, right, to do what they need to do. Or it's great when you leave because maybe you see what's not working, right? But you got to show your teams and your colleagues that it's okay to step away, refresh, come back, and you're much better for it. You think you're just whole. I don't know if y'all feel that way, but I do. Like, absolutely. I just can think better.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than when your boss answers emails on his vacation or on the weekend, and you're like, am I supposed to do that too? Yeah. Then your whole team starts doing it. Then like no one's off all year long, and everyone's like irritable and agitated, and you kind of want to know why. But Dusty, we're coming up to the top of the hour. We wanted to, close this. What would Dusti Wofford's mantra be? Say we're driving down I-35. You have a billboard out there on the way to work. What do you want everyone to see on their way into work tomorrow morning?
Gosh, that's a really good one too. Never give up.
Love that. I think that's been the repetitive theme. I think that's awesome. Dusty, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the conversation. I think this was an awesome discussion and opportunity for others to reflect, including myself. And I appreciate you taking the time to be out with Timeout with Leaders.
Well, thank you both. It was great to be on here and humbled that you invited me. So appreciate it.
Oh, you were awesome, Dusty. All right, roll tape.